congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
So tell me about when you got the news.
It came in a phone call with my opponent conceding. At a certain point, of course, the math just doesn't start to work out anymore. And, we were excited that it was like a weight was off our shoulders with a whole new weight added on, right? And, but it's a good weight. It's a weight of responsibility and service, and that's what we're going for this whole time. I'm in the minority, so, my priorities shift accordingly. In my ideal world, my priorities are flooding infrastructure for Houston, border security, general economic freedom, reducing healthcare costs, and I have to adjust those accordingly, right? Flooding infrastructure can still be is something I can still work with Democrats on. Maybe workforce training issues are something I can work with Democrats on. Everybody wants to lower healthcare costs. That's still going to be a fight, though. We have very different ideas of how to approach healthcare, but we all do want better healthcare, more inclusive healthcare, and lower costs. That's across the board, the goals.
So you really do want to work together despite party affiliation?
Yeah, we don't have to give up our values and policy stances, right? There's just some things that we're always going to argue about, and but there's some things that are clearly aligned, and like those are some I mentioned, flooding infrastructure. There's no reason that would be a partisan issue. And again, workforce training. I don't think there's a reason for that to be a partisan issue either. So of course there's something. What people don't realize either is that it's even in this environment, even before I get to Congress, there's some bills that have passed with zero opponents. There was a major IRS reform that passed with 414 to 0 in the House. Major IRS reform. So that just doesn't make the news, and the House leadership would ask, like, why didn't you guys report on this? And the news would just say, wow, it wasn't really controversial, so why would we? And that's just unfortunate. It would be nice if the American people could hear the good stories too.
You've already served your country, obviously, in being a SEAL. Why run for office?
Because I never wanted to stop serving as a SEAL, but I did have to, for obvious reasons. I was hurt. I had to be medically retired, and that desire to serve doesn't really go away. It's just kind of how you do it, And for me, I'm a policy wonk. I love policy, so I wanted to maybe serve in a policy manner. And when it comes to defense issues and national security issues, you really need that background to understand all the different acronyms, all the different meanings in that department and this department. If that's not something you learn very easily. A lot of other policy issues, you can learn it, but on the defense side, you really can't unless you've experienced it, because it is so alien to so many people, and also because a lot of it's classified. Beyond that, it's about leadership. So you learn what real leadership is in the SEAL teams. I think what it means to inspire someone to follow you, not just give them orders to follow you. And that's leaders forget that distinction sometimes. Like, you just have authority, or are you a leader? And bringing that kind of essence to Congress, where you're supposed to be persuasive and inspire people to do things, not just like demand and throw rocks at the other side, which is a little bit more what we see. So just kind of being part of the solution on that front is important to me. It really turns out that to really make an impact, especially on a wide variety of policy issues, you've got to be in an elected position. And it's by far the most painful job interview to get there, but it's worth it, because you can serve so many different issues all at once. It's not just that one thing that you focus on, and it's just really meaningful to us.
When do you actually move in to your office?
I guess the day after swearing in, I think. So we'll go up next week for orientation, really through the rest of November. We get a week off for Thanksgiving, and then finish in the end of November. And it's almost like going to college. There's like a freshman orientation. You have freshman elections, for freshman class president and steering and all these things. And then you get a lottery system to pick your office. You kind of roam around seeing which office you might like. It's like picking a dorm room. It's just funny how many similarities there are between the two. But I believe you move in almost immediately after, and hopefully if you work with whatever office you're taking, maybe you can start that process earlier. But these are things I got to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah. And how are you going to decorate it? Do you know that yet?
That's a good question. Jeez. You're making me nervous. I've got to think of all these things. It'll have a lot of my personality. It'll have a lot of Texas personality. You will know it's a Texas office as soon as you walk in. I'll put it that way.
Did you think it would be this crazy looking back?
Maybe, I don't know that we came into it with really specific expectations. And if we did, I don't remember what they were. This week has been extra crazy, and so I don't know if we expected that. I expected it to maybe be a little bit more under the radar, just like most members of Congress are for, the first few years at least. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way. I wish every American knew who the representatives were and was engaged, but it's just, that's not always the case. And, it just, and so I figured that would be how this one would be also, but this week has proven to be very different.
Exactly. Yeah. Can we talk about that a little bit? Sure. Okay. So when, Pete Davidson first made those comments about you, your appearance, how did you find out? Did somebody tell you what he said? Yeah,
we got a bunch of text messages like the next morning. Hey, you made SNL. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. Because it's highly unlikely that they were favorable to me and my fellow Republicans. They rarely are. And, it turns out that was the case. Now, obviously, they went too far than I think they even intended to, and who knows how that happened. I still don't know, but it did, and so they got a lot of backlash, and probably rightfully so, and so our stance was just, listen, it was offensive, but it doesn't mean I need to be offended, all right? I don't need to demand an apology or demand a firing of somebody. That's just, that feels so juvenile, and it seems like every time in the culture wars that's what happens, and it's just not helpful. And so that was the conversation we had all week, and to make it right, they wanted me back on to make it right, and so Lauren called me. He's the head producer, the creator, and said, you got to come this weekend. I said I can't come this weekend because I've got all these Veterans Day events, but maybe another weekend. And he's like, well, that's exactly why you have to come this weekend, because it's Veterans Day. And I said, well, that's a good point. And so, and especially kind of the delivery of the message that I wanted to give, and they let me write it and give it the way I wanted to. And so I had a lot of control over how that script went, which was pretty cool. And, they truly did want to make it right. And, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you had some jabs for Pete Davidson.
Yeah.
How did that go, being face to face with him? How did he react to you?
Oh, it was good. So when they first brought him in, I mean, he's 24. So you got to remember, you got to put everything in context, right? This is a 24-year-old guy. And he kind of comes in, he's kind of an all shucks kind of guy. Like, oh, he's just a nice guy. When he said, I really didn't mean it that way, I kind of believe him, you know what I mean? It is what it is. But yeah, he was really wanting to make it right. He really did feel, I think, that it went overboard. Everybody else felt that way too. Some things are just not funny, and that's just this thing left and right can agree on that. In a sense, nothing is off limits, but it does have to be funny and kind of good-natured. That's the essence of comedy, and that just wasn't. But they recognized that, and then we kind of figured out a way to rectify it.